Igor Stojanovic joining us.
You said it right.
What country are you in?
I'm currently living in Switzerland.
Oh, that sounds very pleasant socially.
Well, yes. It's how shall I describe it to you living in Switzerland? It's like pile of shit, nicely packed in a nice folly, and with a big, nice rosy tie. So everybody from aside say, "Wow!" and nobody see what kind of shit actually happens in this country right now. I mean, the standard of living in the last 10 years dropped more than 20%. More than 30% of population lives on the edge, you know?
And how close to the edge are you living at present?
Oh, on the very bottom. I was working for 11 years approximately as a service technician most of the time. I had very good wage, sometimes more or less I could have even 11,000 francs. That's something like approximately $11,000 per month. Most of that actually went for insurances, taxes, social care, and so on and so forth.
Protection
As,
money.
yes, as soon as I got sick and I was 100% not capable to work, it turns out that actually I do not have, insurance for something like that. So
Oh.
from that kind of living, I went straight to social case. When they pay your flat and pay your social insurance, health insurance,
Yes.
and you have ridiculously tiny amount of money for your everyday needs. Now, one would say, okay, you ungrateful bastard, they pay your social care, they pay for a flight. No, they give that money to the big companies.
Wow. I
That's
understand.
that's how that's how the system works.
That's how the
I
student
mean,
loans work here.
we talked about the color crime in America. Let me tell you something about the same. Just we call them a bit different over here because always has to do something with some party. Over here you have a couple of them, but more or less they are the same, patron for the sake guys. Incredibly enough, the conservative nationalist party, which kinds of wants to stop, foreign immigrants coming here. More or less all of them are the owners of the biggest companies in the country. Now explain me how does that's work for them. Actually, they're making themselves look stupid, so nobody actually votes for them. And they have the cheap labor. Anyways, just in last 2 years, I live in a very small municipality over here, and more than couple of $1 million went into widening the street. So, and I'm living in the village, so the trucks can go through. For me, quite a known reason. Then they start building this kind of fences around, just 100 meters of the fence to stop the noise coming to your flat costed approximately $500,000.
Wow.
Not mentioning that they completely destroyed the grass, and certain amount of money will be paid for that. Now, that all goes from our taxes.
I have to point out that this is especially bothersome to you because you're interested in non-destructive infrastructure and farming. In fact, right?
What is happening over here is that you have less and less and less of nature. Let's put it in that way. Everything is controlled, everything is kind of organized, but the end game, as far as I can see, is complete destruction of natural resources.
Right. Peak everything.
I mean, you can see when you go in a forest, the trees are really sick. And how they cannot be? I mean, just the cars. Stupendous amount of cars is on the roads over here. I mean, just amount of silica from the tires. I mean, you are on a highway, okay, and you don't have a good filters in the car. Very soon on your dashboard, you're gonna start noticing that something is piling up, something dark, kind of blackish. That's silica. And incredible amount of diesel and gasoline, not to mention that more or less all the houses over here are using diesel heating systems. You know, the cheap variant of the diesel. So, yeah, my goal is to get out of here as soon as possible.
Well, where would you like to go?
Back to Serbia.
Ah,
You know why?
the girls.
No, because it's so undeveloped. And you still can go on the river and drink the water.
Ah.
For
And
example,
girls are beautiful.
yeah, and you can go in a forest
Are
and
they
you can,
Serbian girls? They're beautiful, aren't they?
well, like in any country, you have nice ones, you have not that nice ones. It's just a myth.
I just like
Uh,
the Slavic features. Are they Slavs?
Yeah, we are predominantly Slavs, but we do have Hungarians, we do have Albanians as well, Romanians, which are kind of Slavs, but mixed with some other tribes.
Yeah,
Anyway,
among Caucasians, I find the Slavic ones to be my favorite.
well, thank you for that racist remark.
You're welcome. Anyway, I didn't
Okay.
mean to interrupt. Go on. You're saying that you really want to get the hell out of there, and that you're not really able to accomplish much because of financial. Just kind of you're not.
Okay, let me put it bluntly, how it goes over here. You get up in 5 in the morning, and if you're lucky that you're working only 8.5 hours per day, you're back at home something like 5 or 6 in afternoon. Okay?
Yeah.
And you are so squashed like a freaking lemon or orange that the only thing you're capable of is to eat something and go to bed. Most of the people over here, 9 o'clock at evening, they are already in a bed. Otherwise, they cannot keep up. The amount of depression, all kind of neurosis, burnouts in this country is just incredible. What government has done about that? Well, they actually rose certain level when doctor can say, well, okay, you cannot work anymore. The effect of that is that you have incredible amount of people which are heavily drugged with antidepressants mostly,
Yeah.
and the rate of suicide is just incredible.
Really?
Of course, you will not see this in newspapers. Imagine the guy, 30, 35, has a career, young, active in sport, everything's fine, he has a future, and one day he just hanged himself.
Wow.
Why? Because for years he's already on antidepressants. And mind you, antidepressants are mostly amphetamines, you know?
Well, I don't mind the amphetamines, but I won't take the antidepressants. They're just too scary.
Well, antidepressants are, you know, the variant, they vary just on the dosage of the drugs they put in them. But here's the thing.
Yeah, I'm cleaning up my act.
Look,
Right?
your body has that much of energy capable of producing per day. Having antidepressants, same as having amphetamines, it makes you work above that limit.
Yeah.
The end result, I mean, it's quite obvious, isn't it? So that's
I don't
basically,
know. I'm kicking
that's
that.
my experience about the Switzerland.
I've always been one to buck the trends, and I think mental attitude has a lot to do with it.
Well, these are, how shall I say, people from the hills, more or less. They have that kind of culture, or they used to have it.
Well, aren't they all raised to like chase after capital? You wanted to talk about capital and aristocracy, banks, the Enlightenment.
Right, okay. I mean, first of all, capitalism is dead. It's dead long time ago, actually. We have not even noticed that it's dead. We still have that impression that actually doesn't matter, is that Switzerland or United States of America or Brazil are having, capitalists in power. Well, here is a simple fact. You don't have owners of the companies anymore. You have managers.
Yep.
50 years ago or more, good company has always money reserve from the good times in their vault. Nowadays, thanks to the changes in taxation, they are not allowed to that, because if you are putting money in your vault, they're gonna tax that money every year. Basically, they force you to reinvest that money. And most of the people or companies investing that money where? In a stock market, which crashes very, very often. The end result of that is that actually banks own more or less everything. I do not know good company here in Switzerland which is actually privately owned and it's not in a big debt to the bank. Of course, bank calls that something like, we do care of you, we provide certain programs which gonna make your GDP higher every year, which is pure nonsense. Because you always have that balloon effect, right?
Yeah.
But interesting thing is how the hell we came to this point, because it seems that no one either care or have been noticed that.
Oh, no,
because this goes for hundreds of years actually.
How you got to where you are is very important.
Here's the thing, when we talk about bourgeois revolution, which brought the capitalists in power, most of the time people think about the France, right?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's not true at all. The first revolution of that kind happened in England, actually, because small producers in the cities start getting enormous wealth by producing lots of different stuff, which were they selling mostly to India or to China. The aristocracy itself, or let's say English crown, well, they have their way of having, earning money by selling drugs.
All right.
Ever heard of opium wars in
Oh,
China?
of course, yeah.
Well, those wars started when Chinese officials says, okay, that's enough. You are not selling drugs anymore to our people. The answer for that was sending army, destroying quite lots of Chinese ships, destroyed the army on the land, and having concessions even broader this time to sell opium more or less to whole China.
Which is inconceivably evil, by the way.
Well, you think that's evil. How about sugar?
Oh,
How about sugar? How long? How many hundreds of years that shit is going on? Producing sugars in the colonies, selling it there, and selling it to its own population. Sugar is one of the most dangerous substances on earth.
wow.
Because look, you get easier addicted to the sugar than to the heroin. And that's all thanks to English crown. But how this happens actually is that you see England or United Kingdom or Great Britain. Have you noticed that they have so much different names for, one small region?
Yeah.
Well, English crown do have a problem with its population. Why? Because more or less is based on principles of Roman Republic. And when the crowd is dissatisfied with the Senate and Emperor, they tend to kill them. So English crown is, in that position when they always need to negotiate.
Goodness, so you're saying, it's just so obvious. I'm sorry to interrupt, but the Roman Church is just a continuation of the Roman Empire.
More or less, yes. I mean, don't forget that through the history, all the kings actually had this. I don't know the word. That they are descendants of the gods.
Yeah,
That in their blood
right to rule.
there is, and with that they have that right to rule.
Yeah.
Not to mention that actually the Pope can pronounce somebody king or Tsar or emperor or whatever.
Well,
Only the Pope or the other very strong king.
Naming all his generals and so forth, and all the senators, bishops, and then Theodosius come along and make Nicene Christianity mandatory across the entire United Empire, and then you get England.
Yes, but you see, that's a kind of side story. Let's keep on aristocracy and capitalist at this point.
Yeah, please.
So bourgeois, what that means? That means inside of the city walls. So capitalist basically can be someone who is producing something, but he's inside of the city walls. That means that everything outside of the city walls, like peasants and the land, still belongs to the government. Now, is that like England, belongs to the queen or king, or that's something like Democratic Republic, where all the land is actually belong to the government and by itself, by default, to the president? It's more or less, the same story all the time.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
And the voting, I mean, it just became so ridiculous and obvious. I mean,
Oh,
just
talking about the U.S.
just
election.
just the story with Hillary Clinton and the Donald Trump. I mean, seriously, those two are for jail.
They're
You know,
cartoons. I didn't even vote.
yeah, but you see my point here. It's
Yes.
voting is just a ridiculous thing.
Well, that's why.
Let me put it in that way. Anyways, now before we start this recording, we mentioned Medici family.
We put it. Yes, it's on our list.
Yeah. Now, Medici family, that's, correct me if I'm wrong, something like 13th century when they start having their influence in Florence, in Italy.
Oh, yes. Well, yeah, presumably around there. Sure.
Well, one would say that they stole the recipe from the Jews because Jews were always the bankers, Jews was always the money sharks, loan sharks, you know? Not
Oh,
true.
no.
Not true.
May I well, may I interject a little bit?
First, no. Let me just finish. First,
Okay.
efficient banking system came with the Templars.
Ah, yes.
Of course, they didn't charge the rates, but they charged for the services, which more or less came to the same thing. We have your money where you want it to be transported. Well, more or less, that's the first cases of money laundering as well.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
I mean, take this money from the France and send it to Jerusalem, and I'm gonna do something with it over there. And by the way, I'm not paying with that money taxes to my king because, hey, there is no money in France. I think by definition that's money laundering. Anyways, the power of Medici family and the power of Templars, I mean, there are stories and stories and stories now, right? But we forgot that power actually still do exist through banks today. Is that JP Morgan or Rothschild or some other like German, what was his name, Warburg? I mean, though actually they are the real power because they do possess all the money. American Federal Reserves is privately owned institution.
Sure.
They print the paper, give it to your government, and suddenly that paper becomes money which your government owns to them.
Right. Owes interest on. That's insane.
Well, the same thing happens in England.
It's fractional
And
reserve banking.
yeah, I strongly believe that the Swiss has adopted, very same principle. Basically, their currency is not anymore countervalued in gold. So we are talking about three major influential currency in the world. Euro, I don't want even to talk about it because it's such a sham. Euro is not; it does not have its counter value in gold. So basically, its value will be what they decide it's gonna be, and not based on its real market value. That's how they conquer the countries around from the ex-Soviet bloc. I mean, we print shitload of this money. We go in your country with all this worthless money. You think it's worth something, and we destroy your economies.
Wow.
And by the way, we say that your bank must obey our rules, so we make the worth of your currency ridiculously high. So your products are ridiculously expensive on the foreign market. You know what I mean?
Is this how it's going on right now?
Yes.
Wow.
And I really don't want to sound like yet another conspiracy theorist thing, Illuminati and whatever. But very, very clear and very provable fact is that more than 90% of whole wealth on earth belongs to very, very small group of corporations, not to persons, corporations. I mean, everybody says that one Rothschild stands behind whole Rothschild. That's ridiculous. I mean, they're so huge that one man, even if he works 24/7 per day, he cannot even put his signature on all the documents. Right? So there is a bunch of people strategically put to run certain corporations, and in turn they work together with the central bank. In this case, Rothschild's bank or subsidiary, whatever the name can be. And that's the biggest problem, because neoliberalism is not a capitalism at all. Neoliberalism in its nature, it's more like socialism you had in Soviet Russia. Because in a pure capitalism, government will not save company from the bankruptcy. Right?
Right.
And what's happening now, that government actually do interfere, takes taxpayers' money to save a company which is actually bankrupted, but by really, really immoral persons who created, let's say 2009, how shall I put it, shit?
The real estate bubble?
Yeah, it started with that. Then the whole, thing collapsed because everything was overpriced. Everything. I mean, the same thing here in Switzerland. I don't know how many times you have heard of the news that UBS Bank, which is officially one of the banks of in Switzerland, is punished, but I don't know how many millions in America because they found out they have to do this and it. Guess who is paying for those fines? UBS? No. The government of Switzerland is taking the money from the taxpayer and paying for that. I mean, what kind of message does that send to UBS? Oh, please be free to make more incredible stupid shit over there. We're gonna pay for it. Doesn't matter.
I think there's some deep human psychology going on there. It's kind of the need to dominate the slave-master relationship.
Yeah, but you see, when you had some how shall I put, systems like feud system, actually the owner of the land and owner of the people wanted his people to be healthy, wanted his people to reproduce themselves.
You're talking about Jupiter compared to Saturn.
No, I'm talking about economics of those times.
Oh, yes,
I mean, down there in Serbia, during the Ottoman Empire occupation, around my city, Turks created more than 10 villages, brought the people from some other area, put them there. Why? Because it was empty, there were fields over there, so basically they would produce whatever they would produce, agricultural products or cattle, and the owner of all of it would have a profit, right?
Right.
Well, nowadays it's not that simple anymore. especially with this neoliberalism thing and kind of open market, which is, mind you, not open at all.
Well, the resources are running out in every category.
That's not necessarily true either. Creating that, bless you, creating that kind of dogma is actually helping them to stay in power. Create problem, scare the people with the problem, and then you find a solution for it.
That's right.
So basically, you are a savior.
Oh man.
Yeah,
The
but
trick in the book.
unfortunately, I mean, I was really researching all, kind of serious people talking about what is going on right now. No one of them really points out this huge leap, the huge change happening right now. Capitalism, is dead. Simply does not exist anymore. And they are claiming that, for example, USA is living in one such system. You know what I mean?
What, are we going to see
Why?
like interest rates skyrocket? We're going to see a mass runaway inflation if we don't have a war or something.
Well, if history taught us anything, like a First World War, like a Second World War, is that every time when the system cannot sustain itself, they create incredibly big war. They wipe the slate clean and they start over again.
Oh my God.
Mind you, for them, hundreds of millions of people died. Does not touch them.
Maybe
It's
there's something
all.
on with all these suicides among people who are like leaving the workforce early in Switzerland that isn't yet visible to you, which I would say is it's the managed kind of decline of people.
Let me tell you something. When you're in a fast flowing river, okay, you're in the middle of it, and you are forced to swim very, very hard just to keep yourself on the surface on a very thin spot, right? You don't have time to look around and see what really is happening, Okay, I'm going to tell you a very funny story just to make my point, okay?
Okay.
Two friends of mine decided to go for the fishing. After some times, well, it was not really successful fishing, so they decided to go for the swim. So they jump in a river and start swimming upstream. The first guy, he's a heavy smoker, and after some period of time, he noticing that he's not swimming upstream anymore. His legs and arms are getting tired, and he really starts panicking because it's a bit, bigger river, so you can drown.
Yeah.
So more or less, last drops of energy in his arms, and he decided to sink to the bottom and push himself from the bottom upwards so he can breathe enough air. So desperate he was.
Wow.
So he rolls himself in a ball, sinks to the bottom, and tries to jump out, finding himself in less than a meter of the water deepness. You see my point? That's what they do to us.
Right.
We're so overstressed in our lives.
Right.
That we don't have time, we don't have energy to look around and say, hey, this is fucking bullshit. We are in the machine. We are in a meat grinding machine, all of us.
Yes.
Even those who think they're in power, like certain managers. And I mean, how other you can explain that much of sexual deviation between them, that much of the drug abuse, and that much of neurosis, right?
Yes.
I mean, you cannot find half a bone in them, even if you look under microscope. And they are under impression that they are in power. That's more or less the saddest part of it.
Well, I would have to say you're right. They're very slavish, even if they are the ones in the more comfortable slave, position.
Well, we can round this up with simple message. People, look around. Find the time and look around. Simple as that.
Igor, when you go around and you're preaching the electric universe, Tesla, free energy, new science, new knowledge, kind. Do you think that the powers that be would take an active interest in suppressing you?
Of course they are. Of course they are. First, you have very, very dogmatic academic circles, which you can really compare to the 13th century church. More or less everything is the same, we just need the Inquisition. Well, actually, they're burning books, right? I heard that they burned Velikovsky books, for example. Not that I'm saying that he's right or wrong, but the simple fact they were burning in this democratic society, open-minded society, that you burn a book. I mean, in these times when you can buy Mein Kampf on more or less every corner, and then
the persecutions of the scientists. You know that Halton Arp was Hubble's assistant. If anybody's qualified to criticize, the Hubble's theory, it would be his protege.
Yeah. Let's talk about patents.
Yes, let's talk about your inventions real quick before I let you
go. Okay. Well, Victor Schauberger, Walter Russell, obviously Nikola Tesla. There are some other scientists. Even Edison has had very, very good inventions. But here is the thing. In consumer society, you need to create something which is shiny and does not last very long. So whoever wants that shiny needs to buy it again and again and again and again. The only way I'm seeing like a way out of it is simply to start creating, opposing force, grouping the people, spreading your ideas, discussing your ideas, and whatever I do is open source. I mean, just one very stupid example. You ever heard of plasma burner or plasma cutter?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Are you aware of the fact that that thing creates more than 3,000 Celsius? I don't know how much is that in Fahrenheit. On his very top.
At the top of the arc?
Yeah.
The flame?
Yeah. So basically, you can use that to burn water, ordinary water, because on 3,000 degrees, water molecule splits into atoms, and then those atoms splits to even smaller particles, and we know that as a plasma. So basically, with one plasma cutter in your household, you can make more or less yourself very, very, very efficient, non-pollutant heater for central heating, for water heating.
Turbine steam has been
Yes, with some tweaking you could create lots of amount of steam, but then again you need electricity to run plasma cutter to create the steam, to create electricity. Well, here's the thing: you need much better efficiency in generators, which currently, unfortunately, is not possible. But there are some alternatives, especially in permanent magnets. Now, I'm not talking about perpetuum mobile. Law of conservation and every action has equal and opposite reaction does stand. But if you take one permanent magnet, which is having a magnetic field around itself, and you employ that in a clever way, that magnet, you're gonna achieve something what is known as over unity. There are quite a few interesting videos on YouTube.
Yeah, you sent me a few, and of course, that's part of the whole electric universe scene. It's kind of a
well, let's say that even now, with extremely little investment, group of people can create quite efficient over unity electric generator based mostly on strong neodymium permanent magnets, which can produce something between 3 and 10 kilowatts, which is quite enough to sustain one, household.
Now, how far do they get before somebody stops them? Literally. Maybe a little paranoid, but
no, look, it's really not about that. It's really not about Men in Black. It's always come to the human greed, I'm afraid.
right.
Because everybody wants huge money out of his work or her work. I mean, I'm gonna go back to Nikola Tesla.
You're saying this is why you go open source with your invention.
Yeah. If Nikola Tesla had thinking of people these days, we would not have electricity at all.
This is true.
As we know it, we would still have Edison small generators. Basically, every 2 blocks, you would have huge generator factory for electricity.
Yep.
And he just gave it. And he never regretted.
Give it away, give it away, give it away now. Yep.
Yeah, something like that. And that's it's really sad, because lots of good ideas are simply disappearing. You have that Australian guy who was boiling water with a very small amount of electricity via ultrasonics. He never wanted to sell or to give the plans for it. He wanted that for himself. Basically, he wanted investor in which he's gonna have most of the sharehold stuff, blah blah blah. Now he's dead, and we still do not know what the hell was that all about. Not to mention big companies like Google, which are buying small startup companies, and those patents and those products are simply disappearing. For example, I'm personally acquainted with one case in Israel where they produced a quite efficient solar generator. I mean, taking the electric power directly from the sun with a huge satellite dish kind of dishes.
The rotating lenses.
Yeah. What happened is that I really don't know how you can sell a university patent in Australia, but what happened that the professor got retired and the whole thing, I mean the whole project was sold to Chinese company which incidentally produces solar panels. Now, why the Chinese company bought it? It's rather obvious to me. They already have established factories and processing lines. And now to invest or reinvest to start producing this doesn't pay off. And it's for them just stupid because they already just have running and they have good money. So they simply bought off the patent and lock it somewhere in the vault.
Which is a shame.
In Germany, in Germany, Volkswagen created a car which spends something 1.5 liter for 100 kilometers.
Wow.
And you saw it in the news. Like, well, I saw it over here. You cannot buy that car. Why? Well, we had the problems, we have this. By standard model, it spends only 6 liters. And that's not the first case. More or less, every company, car company, produced very efficient car, but never put it in the market. Now the question is why.
Yeah. You tell me.
Well, governments think that they're gonna collapse because if you have more efficient cars, that means less income for the taxes because gasoline and diesel are heavily taxated, right?
Right.
In some countries, even more than 80% of what you are paying for the gasoline goes to the government. Now, what most people do not know, most of that money ends up in the banks, especially in the poor countries like Serbia, Croatia, Lithuania, Estonia, Kazakhstan, for paying off the debts. And the banks are the same which are actually owning Epson, British Petrol.
Right? They're paying off the interest on the debt. The right?
Yep.
Wow. What a fucked up world.
It's rather fucked up. And it's rather fucked up. Let's put it bluntly for what it is.
Hey, you want to come on and do a part 2?
Yes, but this time we would go more technical about electromagnetism and some other quite interesting thing like why the atom is not a bloody particle and why we perceive it as a particle, what went wrong with the Boltzmann, how that went to the Planck, through the Planck to the Einstein, and more or less the whole classic science we know today.
Oh, that sounds great. So we will do maybe a 10-minute show prep, or maybe you put together an outline of what you want to cover.
By the way, Jack, if you have not recorded this, I'm gonna kill you.
No, I recorded it.
I'm gonna hire a Russian.
Please do. Put me out of my
No, first he's gonna shoot you in your knees.
No, it's recording just fine. Let me take a look here.
Okay, so we shall round it up now.
Okay, very good. I'm gonna say good night for now. What time is it there?
Almost 7 afternoon.
7 in the afternoon. Okay,
Yep.
It's only 10, 11 o'clock here. So, when would you like to do this again? 2 days, 1 day, tomorrow?
Let's round it up first, and then we can speak about that. Don't bother people with.
Oh, okay. Well,
Okay.
excellent, Igor. I really, really do appreciate you coming on and taking time to talk to me. And whether you
Yeah,
know it or not,
I would really like that we were capable to be more coherent on the subject and having one straight line. But there is so much interesting things
I agree.
which people need to know. So I hope that they will bear with us.
And they just need a little idea that there is a better world. And I think people like you are windows into that better world.
Well, we should certainly try.
Well, we know it. We know it's possible.
Of course, it's possible. Here in Europe, you have already some municipalities which they don't use money at all.
There you go.
And incredibly enough, they're strangely prosperous.
I don't think it's strange at all.
Well, according to the classics, what they're teaching us, you need to pay your taxes, so you're going to have those returns back for social care, for
Yeah,
your
that's the
pensions, and
difficulty.
blah, blah, blah.
That's
This
the doc-
system,
yeah.
those systems should collapse a long time ago, but actually, in Spain, for more than 15 years, you have municipalities which are just flourishing.
Really?
Yep,
Wow.
good.
I love Spain. I mean, I've never been, but somebody asked me what foreign country I'd like to visit. I said Spain immediately.
Okay, shall we stop recording now?
Okay, I'm going to say goodnight, and I'll talk to you very soon. Have a great time and good luck.
Okay, bye.
Bye bye, Igor.